Hold on, man. It's like, so yeah.
Oh, you got one of those you can share?
Yeah. Yeah, well, those are lots of cross tops.
Well, I probably got time to get some,
one. My voice is
get some
shot.
gum out of my purse. I have to just dig through it. Thank you.
One left.
Sure.
Sorry about that, Gavino.
No, I'm all right.
Hot stage lights.
I'm all right. Well, I think I'm all right. If I'm not, I'm pretty sure I'll be.
Catch my breath here. You got to take us on, Marilyn.
We on already?
Maybe McGhee will show up before we get going. No.
My God,
Just sit tight. Everything's good.
Don't mess with the lights.
Huh? We're fine. Everything's fine. Everything looks good.
We never play our rolling song no more.
Just sit there and be beautiful.
The one about growing weed down at the trailer park.
that's a good thing.
That's the old Austin.
Getting along well with the other bees?
Oh, I don't know. They're all
I'm just like my babies. They're gone. I always liked watching them.
All right. Well, them damn bees.
Over there and see the bees. I told you when you come, I told her about that. After trim that tree and you put that foam up. Apparently she didn't believe me that the thing. I don't know who she had do it, but
Chris, you don't have to.
she believed.
You don't have to zero in on me so close because that makes me big. I want.
You look fabulous.
That's sweet, but I need you to.
You look fabulous.
I need you to crop that and make me fine.
You're fabulous. We're all fabulous.
What happened to your partner in crime, Fernandez?
Adele? Oh, she was on the show.
She was on one of the shows a while back.
She took it not too long ago.
Yeah, two weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
She's still at the Capitol?
I don't know.
So.
She, I guess she'll be back.
What did Chris say?
She's working somebody in Lockhart, I think.
Is she?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Oh, okay, good.
that's where she.
Say, beat me up, Scotty.
Oh,
Say that.
beat me up, Scotty. Huh?
Yeah, she's from.
Oh, there we go.
Oh! Happy Monday and welcome to the Trailer Park Show. You know, last week we had a dynamic show and it was so good that we had to bring our guest speakers back on because we need to continue what we started. We talked about some awesome things that are not awesome, not too awesome things that are happening here in Austin, but some things that I don't really like that's happening. And today we are going to bring a solution to the problem. So I want to introduce our guest. Of course, we've got Pokey. Raise your hand.
Yeah,
He's our producer.
no Mike Lee tonight.
You'll see him on right.
You'll see him on right talk with Mike Lee 30 minutes after we're off.
Okay, we have Dr. Fred McGhee here. Yes. And we have Nelson Linder. And we have Gavino with El Concilio.
Also with LULAC 22-325.
Slash LULAC.
Oh,
Oh, council number 223.
El Concilio /
10-4.
LULAC. That's it.
And Mr. Linder is on the radio.
Yes. Tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. at
Gospel tunes?
KAZI,
Yeah, okay.
80.7 FM. Been up for 11 years.
You know, I've gotten to this point where you're going on the air without me because I'm still snoring at that time.
I certainly understand.
Unless it's a doctor day.
Most normal people are, so I understand.
Well, I ain't got a job no more, so you know.
Well, last week, our discussion, part of it anyway, had to do with 3 project communities here in the city of Austin. And that are thinking about being torn. Are they going to actually be torn down, or is the possibility of them being torn down?
Some torn down, but I'll have Dr. McGhee address that because he wants to work on that. So
Right now, nothing has happened in terms of actual federal momentum to destroy our public housing. Any destruction of public housing is going to require a demolition permit from HUD. While movement has been set into motion locally by the Austin Housing Authority and the City Council to get ready to do things, ultimately it is HUD that is going to be in the leadership on this, and it is HUD that will have to grant permission for these housing projects to be redeveloped.
What do you think the likelihood would be for HUD to do such a thing, grant such a thing?
In this administration, anything is possible. I mean, I don't know. It's likely that they will support what local elected officials support. That's the
Really?
general trend. In New Orleans, when St. Bernard was torn down, when Iberville was famously torn down after Hurricane Katrina, there was an infamous city council meeting where the police barricaded the city council chamber and kept residents of the public housing
I
from
remember
coming
that.
inside.
That was in the news.
Okay? And then under cover of police protection, the city council approved the demolition of the Iberville housing project, and Mayor Nagin, who spearheaded that effort, was eventually thrown into jail for being a corrupt public official.
Well,
So public housing is sort of a difficult thing. It has an interesting history for
Thank you,
a
Mark.
reason, but basically, right now, the Housing Authority says it wants to do something. It is setting procedures and plans into motion to do those things under the RAD program, the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. But that program is actually run through HUD. Okay.
so is our housing authority wanting these projects torn down?
It does.
It does.
It does. The land, look, there are reasons why that's true. One of them is that Austin now has skyrocketing land values. The Housing Authority controls a lot of very high dollar real estate. Okay, if you go downtown for that elderly housing project, Lakeside,
Trinity?
how much do you think that's worth?
Ooh,
The one
nowadays.
that's behind the Four Seasons?
Yeah, Trinity, on Trinity.
Yeah, that's worth a lot of money.
The one
Okay?
me and Mark
I
can't
didn't
get into.
realize that complex was in question for being
Oh,
torn
it's been,
down.
well, I mean, the Housing
Yeah,
Authority
they
knows
wanted
what
to-
it has there. Trust me, it very much knows what it has there, and it's made offers all the time. Political pressure, with recent city councils, has pretty much kept that housing project from being privatized like the others. The problem is that doesn't apply to Rosewood and Chalmers, which do not have a similar base of support. I mean, senior citizens who live downtown are considered to be a stronger political constituency than, people who are in their early 20s with, 1 or 2 or 3 children,
Who don't vote?
who traditionally don't vote.
Or
And HUCA uses its tenant selection procedures to select those tenants and to put them into places like Rosewood so that it can make them redevelopment promises that they'll support.
Mr. Linder, I know you got something to say down there, so do you.
Well,
I
well,
want to ask a
go ahead,
question,
go ahead,
a follow-up on Chalmers. So the rezoning was just part of that process? 'Cause we-
Well,
I
the
remember
Plaza Saltillo
rec-
project
No.
did not initially
No,
involve
no, I'm
Chalmers.
talking about where ADAP used
Okay.
to be, in that other building.
Yes.
That property went through a zoning change to accommodate what that's being proposed.
That's right. It's being
That's
pitched.
what I was asking. So is that just kind of like a premature process leading to?
That's right. Well, yes,
Okay.
it was made part of the overall Plaza Saltillo redevelopment. The Housing Authority was not part of the initial discussions.
Right.
You'll recall, the Plaza Saltillo development entailed extensive discussions at the city council about what sort of entitlements the council was going to give and what the level of affordability was going to be required of the developer. The developer came back later and said, I can't do it, and the city council gave it to him anyway. He didn't just say, I can't do it, he said, I won't do it, because he won't make enough money, because he's a private developer. Okay, unlike public housing, which serves a public good. The city council went ahead with it anyway, so now he has his entitlements. The Housing Authority saw that there was momentum for redevelopment. They're located close enough, so then they decided to make themselves part of that whole planning, transit-oriented development, the whole spiel, the whole shebang. And they have applied under the RAD program to demolish and rebuild Chalmers Courts at a different level of affordability than what is there now. Okay, the affordability level they are proposing is not anywhere close to what the average actual income is of people who live at Chalmers now. What they are proposing is in the quote-unquote affordable housing level of 60% or below MFI, which in their world,
I'm always out of it.
in their private world, is a good number. That, in their mind, that's a good number.
It ain't
But it,
supposed to be
but
involved.
it is not the affordability level of rent-controlled public housing tenants.
All right. Mr. Linder.
Let me craft what I see as a primary problem, but I got to go back and come forward. First of all, I want to thank Dr. McGhee for his work in terms of getting the historical designation.
He knows his
But,
stuff.
but see, here's the problem. The problem is the city of Austin could have been a broker by essentially saying we take the same position, but we're going to ensure, first of all, that the fears of not having housing among residents could be addressed. Those two things are consistent. So you have to embrace the designation, which they didn't, and at the same time address the fears that, okay, while we do this, we're not going to put you out into the street. Right. Now, in my opinion, that would have been the most noble position. The problem is they didn't do that. So the city has never been a broker, and as a result, the housing authority has been given out the power. Now, going forward, we can't go back. This has been a long, grueling process. What we can do is identify the mistakes that were made. If I was on the city council, I would support, number one, historical designation. At the same time, I would ensure that those folks has housing to live in. And thirdly, it was substandard conditions. It's been ignored for how many years? They have never kept the property up. So you got folks who live there who are not taken care of. We have no credibility anyway. So number one, we want to embrace the designation, but at the same time, we want to address the people's concerns. And three, we want to admit that we have not met our responsibilities. Now, when you lay it out like that, you got a whole different conversation. So the goal is now, okay, how can we address that? We know what they're saying, but at the same time, they have not been fully exposed from a community standpoint. I believe if you widen this conversation and try what should have been done, it gives us more credibility going toward HUD. But at least let's tell the truth that the city of Austin has not upkept their property, neither has HICA, and as a result, those folks have fears that are pretty much irrelevant because, number one, they want to live somewhere. So give it the designation, as you should have, and then talk about investing monies to make sure these properties are restored to the proper condition and basically kept in good condition, and at the same time let people know you're not going to displace them because this is important all the way around.
Yeah, I think Nelson raises some very important points.
If I could real quick, I can use the example of me and Ma. Right now we're renting. If they raise the rent again, we're going to be out of discretionary funding of any kind. If they raise rent after that, we're going to be on the street. Now, Mr. Linder said, well, there'll be a place for us, but I'm thinking, we already looked at that high-rise place for older people, you know, and we're right there now, but we ain't going there. I don't know why. I don't know what it takes to get in there. But me and Ma both being disabled and broken
Well,
down.
maybe you could be
and
my
all.
neighbor over at the Point or Villages of Ben White. You want to move out there?
I don't know.
That rent is probably high too.
That's a housing authority property that was built
It's
across.
housing authority?
It is. The housing
Oh.
authority owns it. They own the real
I
estate.
wonder what that'll run.
It's across the street from my house, and my dog often runs over there despite my best efforts to keep her inside my property.
Well,
But it was specifically built for seniors like yourself.
because we like where we're at. It's a great place. But I know that the landlord's a great lady, but I can understand. If you keep raising her taxes, she's got no choice. You know, they say renters don't pay, renters do pay.
Well, for housing authority, don't you have to get on the waiting list?
Oh, well, the waiting list.
Yeah, forever.
This is something that people don't understand. The waiting list, just for public housing, not for Section 8, just for public housing, is over 20,000 people.
So who could,
10,000
so who
Me
could,
and Ma's
who could get in that
lost.
new, who could get in that new addition that they made?
They can't build enough housing to take care of the
Mr.
demand that they have.
Linder,
Okay?
go ahead.
And on top of that, it's not truly affordable. Okay? It's not affordable for the people. Those people who are on the waiting list, a lot of those people get public assistance. Okay? Some of them,
I get,
most of them actually work. Okay?
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
have a low-wage service sector economy in Austin. We have
Moss.
massive inequality
Yes,
where
we
everybody
do.
wants to work in tech. And those are the people that are being served by our private real estate market, because the
Okay.
private real estate market builds for profit. So what about everybody else? Well, for them, public housing has to be part of the solution. I'm not saying it is the solution, but it's got to be a vigorous, robust part of the solution. But that is not what government has been doing.
Exactly.
Government has now treated public housing as an investment opportunity for the same private real estate developers I just mentioned. And it is
Okay.
using the money for the public housing and giving it to them.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Mr.
Nelson,
Linder.
you were going to say something.
Well, back to Dr. McGee's point, this whole issue is a subterfuge because primarily I've worked with HUCA for a long time with complaints and how they treated people going back to the death of Spear King in 2002. But here's the problem. The city of Austin has never embraced the need for low-income housing. There have not been a check and balances for HUCA. That's the problem. These agencies are running amok on what they're doing. No accountability at all. That's a systemic issue. Going forward, the city has to be held accountable for, number one, breaking our promises, number two, for allowing these facilities to basically deteriorate, creating an inhumane condition, essentially. And as a result, those folks are afraid. So I say, look, it has to be clarified what we can actually do. Again, long story short, they should have come out in the beginning and supported Dr. McGhee's work and figured out a way to protect the residents. They didn't do that. They essentially abrogated our responsibility, gave Hanka too much power. We have to address that and begin to hold people accountable. So going forward, there's an issue here with accountability, and there might even be legal concerns. But again, you can fix this problem, but they have to support designation and also let the residents know we're going to take care of you. They haven't done that. So this has been created for a certain purpose. This whole thing was self-induced. It could have been addressed properly, but it takes money, it takes commitment, it takes that kind of investment. And when it comes to black, brown, and poor people, they've never done that. That's where I am primarily.
The low income thing, me and Mom can't live in my car. I mean, we just can't do that. I mean, and it can be scary.
It's very scary.
You know, when we start looking at the books and we take, man, and it's going to go up sooner or later.
You have to address the fears by, number one, doing what? Providing housing. I'm saying that's not really rocket science. You have the will to listen. Well, here's the thing, though. See, you got to have the will to do that. You have to want to do the right thing. How many folks you know at that city council or in Austin, period?
Yes, sir. Well, there's no low-income neighborhood no more.
Well, it's an issue.
Smaller and smaller. I know Gavino got something to say about that part too, because
Well, if
gone.
Rosewood actually stays and
Yeah,
is not
yes, sir.
significantly redeveloped, it will be the only affordable housing in that part of East Austin, in
right.
10 years.
That's right.
In probably 5 years.
probably 5 years. I was about to say.
Yeah, okay. I mean, when they were trying to put it under the Choice Neighborhoods Initiative back in 2012,
Yes, sir.
they tried to say that it was so blighted that no private real estate developer would go there. It was crime written, everything else. The evidence is they're building private sector $100,000+ housing across the street from Rosewood right now.
That's right.
Yes.
That means that they don't care that it's public housing.
Right.
Okay, which means
That means they know something's going to happen in about a couple of years.
which is a good argument for defending it and fixing it up and not demolishing most of it. Okay,
If there's one thing I do know, a good man on a D9, a couple dump trucks, can have that site ready for prep work in 2 days.
oh, without question.
That fast.
This is not difficult. The buildings are in fact structurally sound. Okay, and it would be cheaper to rehabilitate them
Yes.
than it would be to completely demolish them.
But not as
And
money-making.
displace and have everybody displaced.
Yeah,
Well,
and
you know?
no big money coming in.
Well, here's-
with that high-rise, high-density.
Well, the housing authority paid for a report to tell them what they wanted to hear. Okay.
Convenient.
Part of the problem here is that, and you heard Nelson just mention this, there is an utter lack of accountability in that agency. It needs top to bottom reform. Okay. Now, they have said that they are a high-performing housing authority for 17 years running, but they have got board members who have been on that board for 20 years. Okay. And they are a hideously paternalistic top-down organization that has, in many ways, paternalistic disrespect for resident empowerment, meaning residents actually control how the money is spent. They don't. You see, it's only, and it's usually white people. I'll be perfectly frank about that. Usually white people on the board. You'll
On the
see
board,
this.
yeah. They're
You'll
making
see
them-
this about Austin's nonprofits more generally.
And they're not my white
The people who work at the
That's
nonprofits.
white liberal people's out there.
The people who work at the nonprofits are all white. Or all people of color. But the people on the board are overwhelmingly white.
folks, yeah.
All right.
And they don't live in the projects either.
No, of course not.
And they
So-
all make over $100,000.
How do I get one of
In
them?
fact, I think
And the director's supposed to help the poor.
Oh,
He's
without
making
question.
$100,000 a year.
The gentrification business in Austin is big business.
it's big business.
I'll be honest with you. It
That's
really
Big
is.
business.
And to be clear, it's amazing that right now we're talking about the master plan of 28. There's nothing wrong with that. But look, while you talk about that master plan, you've done nothing, absolutely nothing, to address the impact of gentrification. But it's a very comfortable conversation. Okay, let's talk about 28. We've done it for how many years? I read about it in 81. But the issue really is, based on what's left of these housing apartments and East Austin in general, how are you going to address that? First of all, you got to care. Once you care, the things you can do, but you got to hold these people accountable. I've seen it happen for 20 years. The bottom line is, the city council under the at-large system wasn't able to do anything. Now you have a single member districts. They've done the same thing. So you got to have leadership at the city level saying, wait a minute, this is fraudulent. We have to take care of our people and stop this encroachment. But again, it takes willpower, it takes determination, and strength to do that. So who's going to pay the price?
You know what? We know who's going to pay the price, but I tell you what.
Me and Ma?
I wish that the people that, on the next time it's time to vote, you need to know who and who not to vote for. Really. Go down for those city council members that you voted for, and they're not doing anything to help you remain in your place of residence, then you need to go down there and show your face to them and tell them, you know what, this is what you said you would do, or this is what it is that I need you to do.
I have to tell something here about me and Ma. She probably get mad come out here, but I tell her one of our options, we get my truck of 10 out there, trade it in, get us a van, live down by the river in a van. It's really frightening to take to that. She gets pissed off. Ain't no way. I think, that might be.
Well, remember, in my time,
You're right, I can't do that with.
our trailer parks, our affordable trailer parks are going away.
They're gone.
The one on Thrasher is gone. The Cactus Rose is gone.
Nobody can afford them. Those are so expensive.
Well,
Old Torp at the railroad tracks used to have a big one off in there.
and there are developers now who specialize in gentrifying trailer parks.
That's right.
Okay, for all kinds of reasons. And a lot of those developers now are not just getting slick with the trailer parks. You see like this preponderance of storage facilities.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Oh,
cube
yes.
storage and everything like that.
Oh, yes.
That's a lot of those developers are getting into that because that's where gentrification produces people who have to live out of a storage trailer.
Yeah.
Or out of a storage facility.
Have a storage and a van down by the river.
There you go. And they got you. If you're poor, they got you covered. Dollar Central, Family Dollar, okay, all of these different places, and you know who's
All in
behind
my
it.
neighborhood.
What you don't know is that you know who's behind a lot of this stuff, including a lot of this public housing privatization?
Who's there?
Goldman Sachs. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
You do.
I don't even know what
So that's where that money
features are. Or
I have a
Any of these
question
have
for
big
the
money.
academician.
I'm not that.
All right,
Not at all.
because I always hear the word gentrification, 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 but the effects of the economic gentrification, I've always said, because I'm like Linder, we always get interviewed by all kinds of folks regarding our living styles and how we're surviving. That I'll never remember telling this young man that works for the statesman from LA,
what he's gonna
Chicano,
say.
and I said, it's genocides. Oh, no. My editor's not going to allow me to say that or do that. I said, well, a genocide is not only killing people, there's different ways. You change the zoning, you change, the opportunities, the economics, that's another tool that, and all this creates genocide. It creates people having to leave, And so, why is it not genocide?
Well, that is a level of hyperbole that I cannot get behind, okay? Look, I'm half German. And my mother grew up under Hitler, at least my recently deceased mother. So I take this subject very seriously, firsthand, okay?
You got a sister named Michi?
Genocide has a definition under international law, okay?
I've been,
I don't understand it, girl.
What you're talking about...
I've been to the UN page.
Right, what you're talking about is under international law defined as ethnic cleansing,
Right.
okay, which is not the same as genocide. I would be okay with calling gentrification in many cases, not all, but in many, a form of ethnic cleansing.
Yeah.
Without question, okay? Keep in mind that gentrification involves both active and passive processes of displacement and other sorts of impacts. A good analogy for gentrification would be neocolonialism, okay? Gentrification bears all of the markers of colonial rule. Whereby, and a good example would be what an African colonial subject said at the tail end of the 19th century that's quoted often, which is that when the white man came here, they had the Bible and we had the land.
Yeah,
and when they left,
but
we had the Bible and they had the land. Okay?
well, we're getting off the main thing here.
Look,
What we're going to do
I'm
for
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no,
Mark.
you're going to.
No, I think going forward, I think the context is here. You look at the vote last week on Code Next, that tells you a lot. You got folks who look like us. Some of them did the right thing, but most of them didn't. we have to clarify what we're dealing with. Back to gentrification, it's a form of discrimination and white supremacy. Look at the impact of it.
White liberals.
And that can be addressed from the constitutional standpoint. If he had the not just what if he had the
You don't get it free.
You're going to get me in serious trouble. Let me try to be very clear, okay? What I'm saying is there are things that we can do legally, but we haven't done it because it comes from the city council level. That's why you have to elect folks that care, who act like they have a concern about justice. We haven't had that. So we have a chance. Right now, for example, the Poor People's Campaign, the work that they're doing, you see community, not commodity. The folks are doing the right thing. Look, coming up right now, there's a major battle with Cold Necks. And we have a chance to affect that. We're real close. That's going to be an indication of where the city goes. If we can defeat that and elect people who care about folks who are not rich and white, and just being honest about it, and some black too, by the way, a lot of folks, and some brown, some folks play this game. We got to call it what a spade is. We need policy writers like Mr. McGhee, who I give him credit. He's taking time to do the research here, and he's very credible in my opinion about what he does. And we don't typically have that in the black community. I mean, you got to have the data. Now, beyond that, you got to have the political will. The next step is, how do we get 6 votes, and how do we elect people who give a damn about poor people?
I like that. I don't know.
And you know what's so interesting is that it's so challenging. I mean, you can just basically grasp it because, 3,000 votes per seat that win the seat?
Yeah.
So, yes, our people need to get motivated. We don't have a problem with registration. It's real high. The issue is getting them out to vote.
Yes.
And I don't know what it's going to take, but hopefully this younger generation that are, that we're growing up with will motivate more people to go vote. Because Pokey and I, we work elections and we see the...
We used to. You still do.
Yeah, I still do. I usually work Dan Ruiz or Pan Am. And the last election, it was really nothing but young people coming out. But not that many African American or Latinos that are coming out. And I see all these marches, and I said, man, if we could get that one big march that election day.
Well, I don't think there's that many African Americans or Latinos in your area anymore.
Well, in the Montopolis, because I work Dan Ruiz Library.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're not as many there. No, they're not. But they're enough to create an impact. Like I say, a lot of these council races are won by 2,000 votes. Maybe 2,500.
And that's very little.
Very little, and so it is there, and it can be done, because we did it.
I say we vote them out, impeach them and vote them out.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What I'm seeing here is Austin is going in the direction of progressive cities, San Francisco, Seattle, Austin, and it's following high tech.
Come here and tell what your name is and ask a question.
All right.
Can I hear you right there?
It was kind of a question. I mean, Austin's supposed to be a progressive city. So what's the answer? I mean,
What's the answer for what?
well, the solution.
How do we
We're
slow?
talking about electing other people, but that you have to be a progressive to play the game in this town.
Well, it's a complicated, if it was easy, it would have been done by now, okay? Every level of government has a role to play. So, for instance, the federal government can build one less aircraft carrier and use those billions of dollars and fund some of our unmet needs, like our housing. That would be one solution that the federal government can undertake. I think that would be a wise expenditure of the public purse, for us to build one less damn aircraft carrier and to use some of that money to pay for things that people need. So the federal government has a role. Our state government can do a lot of things, okay? It can do things such as fixing our broken public school system. Okay, and there are a lot of things that can be done there. Our local government can do a lot of things, as well as its various offshoots, such as the Austin Housing Finance Corporation, the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority is technically a standalone agency. Its budget is not reflected in the city's budget, but the mayor appoints every member of that board, including the tenant member. Okay, we need more democracy there. Okay. We really do, because that agency is wildly out of control, and it needs, at a minimum for starting purposes, a complete top-to-bottom audit of its books and everything else. Independent audit, controlled and paid for by an independent entity. I would be fine with having the City of Austin's auditor do that. okay?
Really?
Let-
In New York City,
Go ahead, Fred, go
the
ahead.
city of New York is financing much of what's been happening in New York, which has the largest housing authority in the country, over 400,000, okay? And the state of New York is now stepping up to try to deal with the fact that the federal government now has stepped aside from public housing for almost 40 years. But the point is that our housing authority, just like New York's, is not broke. It has money. It just chooses to use that money in cutting real estate deals and pretending that this helps its poor population instead of actually doing what it's done for most of its 80-year existence, which is to provide safe, decent, and affordable housing for families of low income. Stop acting like you're real estate financiers and property managers and do your public duty. That would be my advice.
Also, well, let me first of all address your question, because I think the premise is false. This is not a progressive city. If you examine things like income inequality, median income, housing ownership, police brutality, Travis County criminal justice system, this is not a progressive city. I will say this. You look at cities like Portland, Seattle, and Austin, with small black and brown populations, majority white population, it's a very troubling trend. In many ways, those cities have the worst possible data. So let me say this. That's the first falsehood right there. It's not a progressive city based on how they treat black and brown people. We need to stop that and call it what it is. Secondly, we need to work with other people with different political ideology. In this city, Democrats for a long time have had a clean slate to get things done. They haven't. So we need to make sure we elect people and work with folks who might have a different point of view, but at the same time value things like dealing with the economy and issues we face in East Austin, the eastern thrust of Travis County. But make it as simple as possible. Income inequality, the low cost of home ownership in the black community, which, by the way, has essentially nullified our school system as well. Because under economic segregation, you're going to basically break the black and brown schools. We understand that. So this is not a progressive city. We need to get that right. And also, again, face reality. Get folks involved who can write policies, who are good writers and do researchers to challenge the status quo. Now, we can do it in the street, but it needs to come from our council. That can be done. But we have a responsibility. We have to elect people who understand how to write policies and put these people on notice and expose them before the world. They care about being exposed, but we haven't done that academically, intellectually. If we win the argument intellectually, we win the battle.
Well, respectfully, I think it is a progressive city. It's a rich.
We could change the word progressive to.
Look. Well, that's the problem right there, sir. That's not progressive. If it's progressive, it needs to be for everybody. So let's be clear. See, once again, so you got to be careful. The definition is important.
I bet you do.
Exactly.
Plenty. Don't think that affordable housing is something that happens just because
All I
Republicans.
mentioned, the cities he mentioned was controlled by Democrats.
Well, I'll get you,
Including this
for every city that's been mentioned, I can give you at least 5 Republican cities.
Well, right now, we're worried about the
Or the entire state of Kansas, okay?
I bet you could.
Let's not go there. You want to grind that axe, we're here to talk problems, not party
Yeah,
politics.
we do need to bring a solution.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. When you finish, Fred, go ahead.
No, well, I mean, we
Probably
can't,
come back at another time to grind that axe.
Well, let's keep the obvious out of
Yeah,
this
tell me.
conversation. It is obvious.
It's okay to play one party against the other. We can't be in one people's camp. But I think Fred is right. You can find cities that Republicans do the same thing. So this is not an argument by any means for any Republican party, because in my opinion, they're both as guilty as hell based on what time frame you're talking about. Beyond that,
Can't argue
beyond that, there are folks in the city right now. My friend here is one of them, who I think are very intelligent, who have the courage to fight this system. But you got to do it intelligently. I say again, we can win the intellectual argument. MLK did it in 1968. He lost his life, but in this city of Austin, we don't win the arguments because the folks in power don't share our viewpoint and our perspective. So we got to fix the problem. Gets back to voting, gets back to education. I just left Dale Valley High School, full cafeteria a while ago. These kids now want to learn. We have to educate them and help develop them. It can be changed. It can be changed, but it's not going to be easy. And we've got to challenge the power that be. And too often we don't want to do that. Look, you're not going to be rich in this city, and challenge the folks that have the money. Let's be clear about that. Thank God I'm an independent insurance agent. I make a lot of money. I pay my bills. But I'm not going to kiss anybody's ass, frankly. But, I mean, to be clear about that, if you don't, there's a price to pay. So the question is, are you willing to pay the price to elevate the causes of poor people? Now, and to answer that question, most time is no.
And that's the question to our officials.
Before we
City
get
council,
talking,
even
you
city council
want to say something
officials.
before Dr. Fred goes to town?
About?
Anything?
No. No, it's just,
I know you got something to
again,
say
it's
here.
very important that we educate those of us that have been there, done that, like they say, our younger people to get engaged in civic government.
Yeah.
Okay, because especially local government, because it's the one that affects you the most. And I always see these election results, 42 to 39, or out of the Del Valley areas, or over here, and you say, "My God, we have the answer to many of our issues if we were go out there and vote." Go out there and
Well,
and
I do have
cast
something to
that
say
vote.
about that.
But it's difficult to get someone, because I've talked to persons that say, "You know what? My life is without politics." So, okay, they don't even go there. And that's another right that we have as Americans to participate and not to participate. But we know that it's real critical for us to participate. And unless we do that, because I'll never forget when I was growing up, going to elementary school, they would always take us to Travis County Jail.
That was a good
Give
field
us a
trip.
tour.
That was
Yes,
a good field
yes.
trip.
When I worked at the Commissioner's Court under Commissioner De Leon, I saw the same youth at my age, and they were given a tour, but not of the jail, the courtroom, the jury room, the prosecutor's arena. All these young kids, 8, 9, 10. But they get a totally different picture of the justice system, So it behooves us to make that extra effort to ensure that our kids are educated and make them, because a lot of our parents weren't involved in the civic process, So, but that's the biggest way, and you said, what do we do now? You were asking, what do the tenants do now? Well, I always echo that, because when I go to community meetings, when they call LULAC and they say, we have an issue over here, my first question is, how many here are registered to vote? Well, I said, we need to do that, because else we're wasting my time. You're wasting our time here. So we've got to get engaged. We've got to go out and vote.
Well, Fred, I want to challenge you.
Well, I just want to respond to, just give me 60 seconds to respond to Gavino.
Take more than that if you want.
Look, these are complicated problems. There is no magic bullet for any of these things.
That's right.
But I will say this, put a bow on what you just said. If you are out there in TV land watching this, if you're one of maybe the 50 people watching it right now, if you're looking for something to do and you need something to do in order to exert your political energies, I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with the fight against Code Next. Code Next is designed to be the final solution for the gentrification of Austin. I do not use that phrase lightly. Final solution. It will be the final nail in the coffin of what is left of East Austin if it is implemented. Code Next must be defeated, and we must go back to the drawing board and do a bottom-up, more democratic way of reforming our existing land development code. Everything else will fall into place if Code Next goes down in flames. Okay? I will say that.
You hear that, Ma?
We may can get her to
down
put
by the
something-
river in that van.
Well, we may can get Ma to put something up on Code Next, on the screen about Code Next,
I
because
doubt it, because I didn't send her anything.
we've had Ed here before, so.
Yeah, we're gonna, she does say we are gonna have to cover this Code Next, because he is right. This has got to be one of the most important issues to come across in the city for.
Well, it's just like when I asked Dave Sullivan on the Michael Cargill show.
Yeah.
Remember way back in the day when they started
Yeah, well,
organizing all this prep for
That's right,
Code
when they
Next,
just
and they
started.
came out with this committee, and I asked him, I said, Dave, we're all old-time friends here. I said, when y'all came up with that committee, and it was all white, how come you didn't step up and say, hey, wait a minute, no, we can't do this. This is 2018. Where are the other voices? And then he said, well, I'm the only one that made a question about not having an African American.
A question?
Yes.
Wow,
I said-
with friends like that, I don't know what I would do. I don't know how far I would be along with that, with friends like that. I don't need friends like that, okay? I need friends who are willing to, suffer the same consequences I am.
And
for
I
speaking
told
truth
him,
to power.
it's a real respectful question. I recognize him for his education and planning and his whatever profession and whatever. I said, but why didn't anyone stop and ask that question and say,
Well, because we want fake diversity. We
Well,
don't want real
I wanted
diversity.
him to tell me.
Right.
I know the answer. You know,
Right.
I know why, but I wanted him to tell me because he's a long-time planner that's been on the
Well-
planning commission for many years.
Let's be clear. Just like Plato's Republic, the city is ran by special interests and interests. That's where it ends and begins. Okay, it's not about justice or fairness. Just acknowledge that. Back to the young people. I was born in 1958. My parents told me, "Hey, son, get an education. Care about something other than yourself." And I believe that, and I've been served well by that for the most part. But it's a hell of a price to pay. So again, if you're poor and you're brown in the city and you're white as well, you're so preoccupied about survival, man. I mean, we talk about voting like, look, if you can't feed your kids every day, you got eviction notice, we have to acknowledge that.
Oh, yeah.
So this whole thing is self-induced. Until we create conditions that people can live in and think what amounts to think, we can't solve this problem. But I do think that having good political leadership with a conscience does make a difference.
Yes.
And I do think now with 10-1, we at least have a chance to elect people who have some kind of commitment. But let me be very careful. It ain't all about having a black person and a brown person in office. I think that's a good thing. But let's be careful, okay? We do have standards. We do have qualifications, right? Because you can put somebody not just like you got a major problem. So if you're going to play that game and have representation, just also make sure to have the same values that we have. Because right now, we've got, again, I said this again, we got 4 minorities, 1 black, 3 brown on the city council. And again, that's 4 votes. So if you don't have the political will or the conscience to do these kind of things, they're not going to happen. This city can be changed. Fred mentioned Code Next. Yeah, it's a major war as far as I'm concerned. We have to win that battle. But the other battle is also to make sure these younger people understand what's going on around us. Because I'm tell you something, they might be active, but they ain't reading at all.
Right.
And oftentimes if they vote, they're voting for the wrong things. So let's be careful about that also. I work with a lot of, look, history is important for a lot of reasons. And so we have certain challenges, but look, they can be overcome. They always have been. So I'm not being totally pessimistic. I'm saying here's what we can do based on our current realities.
We need more late Dorothy Turners. Come on.
I just don't want to live down by the river in the bay. Ma's not going to be happy.
Well, you know,
Get out here, man.
be careful.
We need to partner up with Ed and Code Next and get out there. I don't know what other campaigns he's, what other, if he's
Ed,
out
come
there.
back on.
We need to get out there. We've got to get out there and get the word. We've got to get the people in the projects. They got to know what Code Next is so they can come out and vote against it.
I know we set up at Trinity a couple of times for elections, early vote. We'd go there, and that's part of the outreach to get more folks involved in the process. But
The
he,
council saying the petition is invalid, though?
Well,
Yeah, well,
go ahead.
It's
The,
an ongoing fight.
it's important to understand something. There has not been a petition in recent city history that did not require a lawsuit to get it put on the ballot.
Well,
Okay?
Is that right?
So,
we may have to
you
file a
know,
lawsuit
the
against
city
the city council.
remember, city councils cannot stand it when citizens band together and take the initiative.
And that's what we have to do.
Because they just can't, at the end of the day, they come up with a plethora of excuses, okay? So the mayor, for instance, tried to take the moral high ground by saying, well, isn't this why we went to 10-1? 10-1, if we actually have a referendum on this, it will defeat what we try to do in implementing 10-1, It would, and he started talking about diversity and all this other stuff. The mayor is the last person to try to be
Exactly.
posturing about this issue, okay, in that way. The truth is that over 31,000 citizens have spoken. That is something those elected officials must pay attention to. Because if they decide to thwart the will of the people, there will be political repercussions. Let's be clear about that, okay? So, let's see what happens. They're probably, what it looks like right now, we're headed towards a lawsuit, but we don't know. They have until August to
Right.
just let it run, to let it ride. And then it'll be on, we'll have it on the ballot in November, but we'll see. We'll know for sure after August.
And there's also a whole card as well. Beyond whether or not this is legal, and we said that it is, there's also another option as well, and I'm going to save this for later, but I'm going to say this right now. We can very easily prove that Code Next will have a disparate impact on black and brown people. That's civil rights. Now, I can tell you this, in election year, that's an argument they don't want to see. And I can assure you, they don't expect that. So just in case, this first issue doesn't get across the board, I am convinced that we can make a very convincing argument that Code Next, as we see it today, and based on its potential impact, based on the current history of Austin, Texas, that it could be a disparate impact on black and brown people, especially in those in the area like east of I-35. Now, they don't know that yet, but I'm just saying that's a whole card that's on the table. I'm convinced this is going to be on the ballot in November, and we're going to fight with all of our strength to get it there by any means necessary. And so this is a long way forward. But they're going to say, of course, this is illegal. What do you expect them to say? That's what we understand that.
Remember, they specifically have decided that whatever draft of Code Next they decide to put forward will not be looked at by the city's new equity office.
What 6
For
council
precisely the reason Nelson just mentioned. Because the equity officer would find that that thing is inherently discriminatory. Okay? It carves up East Austin like a chicken or a turkey on a spit for private real estate development. Okay?
And Fred, it's more than just East Austin. It's our entire city.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
It's amazing. And so the thing of it is that if you live in the area, actually, if you drive down the street and you see all the changes, which is inevitable, is there, and you don't really like it, you need to get out there and find out what it is can I do to help spread the word for Code Next. Now, if you live in this area and it's affecting almost every neighborhood on the east side of 35, but you need to get out there and find out what can I do? How can my voice be heard? Which your voice can be heard. We've got to get on board with Code Next in order to stop what the city of Austin wants to do to its citizens. We have to stop that.
You're right, but keep in mind one thing. Based on the Marriage Institution Task Force on Racism, and based on this master plan they keep talking about, there's no doubt about the city of Austin's discrimination. In terms of the law and what it means for protected classes, that language, you know what this means. When you say something like that, I mean, the law should be enforced equally. And what we're saying is that that's an angle we haven't taken yet, but it's definitely on our agenda if we have to. The other thing is, again, if you look at this whole thing from a much broader standpoint, this whole strategy has been concocted by the same folks. Mm-hmm. It's another name for what they did for the past, 100 years, the same process. But now we can address it. We're right there. You mentioned a while ago the city council. The 4 folks who voted against it were who?
The 6. There were 6. Right?
No, the 4. No, 4. Yeah, well, 6. Yeah, 6 voted it. Yeah, but the 4 voted for it. I should say were Houston. Yeah. You ever tried in that case? You had Toval, Poole, and Alter. So you only need 2 more votes. Yeah. So we're not very far away. And so we have to be optimistic, but also keep our people in place to go forward. That's all I'm saying.
So the mayor and De La Garza and all those voted not to put it on the ballot, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
And that's the part I want to make sure that we educate our community.
Yeah.
These are the people that said to the 31,000, hey, we're bigger than that.
Right.
Well, the so-called 3 amigos, council members Casar, Garza, and Renteria, are in favor of Code Next. They are, take a look at what's happened to District 3, for instance.
Why?
Okay? The demographics of District 3 have dramatically changed over the past 5 years. The gentrification is everywhere. Councilmember Renteria doesn't just support this, he has facilitated it. He has gone out of his way. And what has been his affordability solution? Homestead preservation districts and TIFs. Okay? That is like giving an aspirin for cancer. Now, it's supported by a lot of nonprofit housers in Austin, but but none of them support preserving our public housing. They're behind the Housing Authority's plan. Okay? So that tells you pretty much everything you need to know. Austin's nonprofit housing community is in bed with our for-profit housing developers.
Well,
I'm speaking here of the advocacy community, such as Texas Low-Income Housing Information Service.
Habitat for
I'm
Humanity.
speaking about building nonprofits, okay? So we face a significant problem here in that our elected officials are on board, and our minority elected officials here. In this particular case, the 3 Latinos on the council, they are supporters of gentrification. And when you get them in a room by themselves and attack them with the facts, they respond emotionally. They respond with passion, not logic, just like the mayor did about this referendum. okay? And that needs to be borne in mind. They know what they're doing deep down inside. I think some of them have a religious belief, that they're actually in their mind that they think they're doing right. It is our job as citizens to force them to change their mind, okay? The truth is on our side. And, notice that a lot of these guys, especially council members Renteria and Garza, they don't actually, the stuff that they're putting out there for public consumption, it's written for them. They're handed a script. Okay, they haven't done original research on these matters. Their capacity to understand the Byzantine world of affordable housing real estate is not there.
Right.
But they do have people such as Habitat for Humanity who are feeding them talking points and scripts. That's why they're also doing a lot of fundraising for these people.
I need to go over two things real quick. First, De La Garza is having a budget public hearing thing coming up soon. It's on the flyer sent out. And if I could go back to Mr.
Her name is Delia Garza.
Delia Garza.
Della Garza.
No, is it La Garza slash Goodman?
That's right, Goodman. Civil rights.
Oh,
This could be another way to sue the city, right?
Well,
To get them to pay attention to this thing?
let me just say this. That's the last resort. But from my standpoint, given what the city has done and said, and given the fact they admitted to these things, I mean, when you do a task force and admit that racism exists and institutionalized, then thank you for that. I appreciate that. It helps me out a lot. You just admitted it. When you talk about the master plan 28, you just admitted it. So I'm saying it might be time to do something about it. But we're not there yet because we can probably beat these guys where we are right now. But just in case, can you imagine that kind of legal struggle going on in the midst of an election year with our mayor and those people?
Sir.
That would take the covers off Austin, Texas for real over this whole country. So I'm just saying, we have a lot of unspent ammunition in this battle.
Well, I had to throw that in because of the confusion between civil rights and can we throw in the elderly on fixed income as another tool, because this will really hurt elderly on fixed
And it needs to be a coalition, no doubt about that.
Yeah,
When you-
another coalition.
But that's why folks have to
Coalition
vote.
partners.
That's why folks have to vote. That's important.
Like in the 10-1, that was a whole left, right, in between, everything was in there.
Well, they tell me I'm just talking about District 3. Be careful what you ask for.
That's my district. No,
You get what you vote for. You
Yeah,
get
well-
what you vote for. Some of this has to be put on the voters, okay?
That's
Yeah,
right.
I
That's
mean,
right. Definitely.
back
I
again.
mean, if you vote, the way, look, what do you want? That's who you voted for.
That's right.
And now
That's right.
you got to deal with it.
And
We've been dealing with it now.
And
for the
that's
past
what
4
I
years.
go and say about.
Maybe you want to run again? How about you? You got to run
about
again?
his president. He won. I mean.
Well,
Next.
the thing it doesn't have anything to do with race. If you voted for them,
Yeah,
that's what you
That's
got.
the name of the game. You beat the game. I mean, you won the game through that. That's how we, as a democratic society, allow our leaders and processes to be done.
Again, though, let's face it. A lot of these people that are voting, they're not really informed about what they're voting for. They see a black or a brown face. They're not doing the research, as Fred said earlier. We have to do a better job of voter education. If you can show folks who just like them are cutting their throats, literally speaking, then that's a whole different conversation. But they don't know that. They like these people because they look like them. Look at their votes, for example. Look at all the votes on the city council, which I kind of have. You see what coalitions come out of that. You'd be shocked. But they don't really know that. They want to defend these folks because they're a certain color, speak a certain language. But their votes are destructive in many cases. And that needs to be to the public forefront. And we can work on that.
Well, yeah.
That's very good.
Nelson.
I'm thinking, we've got one show left for May. That's the one we got, and I'm already planning on something. But I wonder if we got Ed English back to talk with Code Lex, would you two gentlemen from coming back on?
If I'm in town, I'll be here.
If I don't,
Yeah, I'll come.
it's for
I'm here.
the 7th, and I'm planning something else, but it's not developing the way I.
Well, talk about voting before we get off the air.
Yeah,
There is a
we
very,
got
very
5 minutes.
special runoff right now
May
coming up.
22nd?
May 22nd. Early vote is May 14th through
It
the
is
18th.
special.
May 14th, and a very, very important election for the community in general. And that's one that maybe we can start by showing that we need to be active and we need to take action by voting in that particular race.
Well, we can certainly talk about it. The show would be on the 7th. Early voting is the following week.
Monday the 14th.
But I'm thinking this Code Next is an important issue.
Well,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
call Ed English and see if we can get him on here and get these gentlemen back
I
on
know
here as well.
Ed English come on. Well, I'm trying to develop a show with another debate with some other people.
Well, we can debate them later.
Well, they're not responding anyway, so.
Well, here's something you can do. On Saturday, May 6th, at Southwest Key,
Yeah,
Community Not Commodity is sponsoring a Code Next forum.
that's right.
So if you're, again, one of the 50 people watching in TV land,
45.
and you're not busy on Saturday at 2 o'clock, come on out, 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock, Southwest Key, District 3.
I don't think I put that on the flyer either. You know, I like to put these little things on the flyer that, you get my flyer, don't you?
No,
Well, we'll get you signed up.
I'd like to sign you up for it, then.
Okay, do
I'm
you
not
know,
on Facebook anymore.
no,
I'll email
it's
it
just
to you.
email.
Oh.
So where Southwest Key is at?
Johnson High School.
Jane Lane.
Yeah, Jane Lane, right close to Johnston High School.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
the East Side Memorial at Johnston.
Johnson High School.
Okay.
Or
Right.
the future Diana Castaneda High School.
Oh, that's right. It's going to be the future magnet school.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, change the name to that, I can support that. This is a service member who was killed in Iraq, I think.
No, I'm talking about Diana Castaneda. Should be the first Latina high school in AI name. Latina would have a high school name after her.
But what's the other one you was playing with?
No, not me. That was Lanier.
Oh, Lanier, okay.
That's another.
They're changing about.
Yeah, he
changing
was-
names.
Changing names, all these.
He was
schools,
supporting a student
You don't
that.
like you Confederates, I have a problem with Confederates. I don't know, man.
including Colonel Benavides,
Huh?
my favorite Confederate hero, Colonel Benavides.
Oh, okay, well, that's good. How about one of the signers of the Texas Declaration of Independence?
Several of them were Hispanic names. I just don't call them the black
Really?
ones.
How many Tejanos signed the Texas Declaration of
Two?
Independence? What were they?
I don't know the names.
Zavala.
Oh, Zavala is not a Tejano. He's from the Yucatan. It's Jose Antonio Navarro and his uncle.
From the Yucatan, where's
Jose
Yucatan?
Francisco
That's
Ruiz.
Mexico, ain't it?
It's Mexico, but it's not Tejano. Tejanos are from Texas.
Yeah, I was from Texas, that's right.
That's right.
I used to get them arguments down at UT Pan Am all the time.
Any other announcements?
That forum on Saturday is very
We got 3
important.
minutes, go ahead.
I'll be there, by the way. You hear this on a different forum, but it's a very important conversation. We've got to keep sharing information, encouraging people, and really calling a spade a spade. It's nothing personal, it's business.
I feel really bad because I just can't get out to these things anymore.
Hey, man, don't worry about it. You got your
No,
company.
Do the best you can, man.
Yeah,
You're doing all right.
thank you.
Keep it up.
Cranked the air up a little higher and I told them I need a babysitter all the time.
Well, hopefully we'll get a chance
Out
to.
that microphone. Get your hand off that microphone.
Well, hopefully we'll get a chance to. Hopefully we'll get a chance to
Nelson. I love it.
to have
Lyndon Johnson knew it. He knew something about this was right.
Well, this is a this is a true life show. You know.
Yeah.
and it is the
And
trailer
we
park.
really are going to be down by the river to man if we don't get
We
this
don't
under
get paid,
control.
man.
Unedited.
So hopefully everyone will tune in next Monday on the 7th of May. And hopefully we'll have Ed English here and these two gentlemen here. And so that way
That'll
we
be
can talk
right
about code
after-
next.
Saturday thing, it is.
Right
really,
after,
I
Cinco
didn't-
de Mayo?
I didn't function that one. On the Saturday thing from, you say the 6th was that?
The 6th, Saturday the 6th, May 6th. And 2 p.m., 1400, Southwest Key,
10-4.
Jane Lane.
Yeah, I've been there before.
Yeah.
We've been there several times.
Will there be refreshments
There
there?
will be refreshments.
There will be
There will
refreshments?
be, you will be treated well.
You'll be
And
treated
both
well.
Nelson and I will be on the panel, so you'll get to hear us wax even further about Code Next. If you have specific questions, bring them.
That's Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de
Oh, is it?
Mayo?
Okay, hold on.
So it's Sunday, it's 2 to 4.
Yeah,
Right.
there we go.
Sunday 2 to 4?
And communitynotcommodity.com is the webpage if you have questions about Code Next.
Well, if they asked me why I didn't go, I said, well, they told me Saturday.
Hold on, pull it up right now. Come on, I'm waiting for my.
It's Sunday, it's Sunday.
It is, it's on Sunday. Sunday, 2 p.m., 2 to 4. Sorry. Can you still hear me? 2 p.m., thank you. Sorry for my voice.
Yeah, anyway.
But
Yeah.
you know, one of the things that I know it's hit Montopolis, this whole gentrification thing, because
And Dale
you
Springs,
you can't find a lot in Montopolis for less than what nowadays.
couple 100,000 for.
I'm actually going to the Montopolis Neighborhood Association meeting right now.
Oh, yeah, we got a minute left.
Can I say this quickly?
Quickly.
Despite all this, folks should never give up. Look at your history. We've changed a lot of things that folks thought were impossible. So despite the conversation sometimes how things look, the human spirit is very powerful. So get engaged. Remember that we can win some of these battles. So it's not hopeless, and you're not helpless. So do what you can to change things. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you,
sir.
Nelson.
We have, we've been doing this kind of stuff. Go ahead, don't worry about it, come here.
So Saturday, this
Sunday.
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 Apologize,
Yeah,
my
Sunday.
bad, I put Saturday
Sunday.
down.
Oh, yeah, and
Sunday.
Between 2 and
Show up
4?
after church, come on out.
Yeah, stay tuned. Mike Lee's next. We'll be back next week with something. Get involved out there. Just show up. And it is good to have y'all here. I appreciate that. I know
Thank
we've
you for
all
the
been,
invite, appreciate it.
we probably got 80, 90, 100 years worth of activism sitting right here at this table.
That's
Well,
right.
I'd like
That's
to
right.
thank all the donors and sponsors
I
that,
think we're all
well,
35.
bye.